As a party, we took a difficult decision. It's a decision based on conscientious, really within the party. We have both pro-life and pro-choice in the party. I'm pro-choice, so I am happy to repeal LYIT, and fundamentally, the first thing is to have the referendum so that we can open the debate. It's been on the cards too long, and there are so many more issues now starting to come out of it if we don't actually deal with this. And it's not just about women's rights, it's actually much deeper than that as to how we progress as a country. You stood up last year for marriage equality, and so we need to do the same really with this issue too. And it shouldn't be an issue. Thanks.
To save you some time, the simple answer to the question is, if it comes before Parliament, if I'm a TD, I will be voting against any amendment to Article 8 of the Constitution.
Firstly, I will never find myself having to make that terrible decision about having to decide whether the child in my body will be dealt with. That's a women's decision. So I first of all have to say that I'm not well placed because I will never be faced with that situation. That's point number one. So I don't, as a male, I never be faced with that. Secondly, it's a very complex area. There are lots of complexities about it. It's really difficult. Because all of us would want to do the right thing when we find ourselves in that situation. My position on life is I'm pro-life in every respect, and from an unborn child to a mother to a child to an adult. So I'm pro-life in all respects. To answer your question, yes, I would like the 5th Amendment, the 8th Amendment to be repealed, because I was part of a government body, a think tank to advise the government to set up a People's Convention so that people could address this very, very complex issue and not have a right and wrong answer to it. Right and wrong answer is not the way to look at abortion, either pro-life or pro-choice. It's both and neither. It is a really complex issue. So I would like the 8th Amendment to be repealed so that we could deal with this issue as a country. Thank you.
You're welcome to answer the question from where you are, save you from what John's got, that suits you. No problem.
I've had the privilege of working with quite a number of people in crisis pregnancy. I've had friends who've had abortions, I've had friends who have arranged for girlfriends to have abortions, and I've seen the trauma that it's caused in their lives. I've also met a lot of people who don't regret their abortions, and ultimately my firm belief is that a democracy has boundaries. I don't think anyone in this room would ever agree on a vote on the right to life of a 1-year-old child. I don't think anyone in this room would agree on a vote on the life of a 50-year-old man or woman. And for me, the life of an unborn child is as equally precious and as equally unique and as equally to be guarded as your life or mine. And I say that with the greatest compassion for women, because I've met them and I know them, who have had abortions, who are in crisis pregnancies as well. And so I think there's a better way to deal with those situations, and that is to cherish both the mother's life and the baby's life, because it can never be a civilized solution to end the life of another human being. So not only will I campaign against the repeal of the 8th Amendment should it happen, I will campaign against any referendum or any vote on the life of another human being. Thank you.
This is a very personal issue for every individual. It's certainly not an easy question to be asked, and certainly not an easy question or position for any woman to be put into or in. I've thought long and hard about this, And I have got to say that I will be, how am I going to put this? I feel that people have the right to choice. And it's a very emotional thing. It's very upsetting. Like Tim says, he has met and knows of people who have been through abortions and parents who are anti-abortion and all of that. It's a very, very, very difficult position for anybody to be in. I would be supporting a choice for people to make, and that be their choice. And then no one can turn around and say, we didn't have the choice to do this.
Well, as the previous speakers have said, in particular Niamh, it's a very difficult area. I'm making my view public. I'm pro-life. I have 3 daughters. I'm married to Patricia. One of my daughters is pro-choice, and we have this debate constantly, which comes home from Queen's University. It's a very complicated issue. It's a very complicated legal issue, and I certainly won't be voting for abortion on demand. I feel that if the 8th Amendment is repealed, that's what will happen. But I feel as a politician at local level, and if I'm lucky enough to be voted at the national level, that this needs to go to a referendum. That's what's wrong with this country. When decisions like this come about, politicians shouldn't have the decision to make those decisions. It should be the people that make those decisions. And I would be pushing for a referendum to let the people decide. But I would be voting against the repeal of the 8th Amendment. I have a lovely debate every day at home. I have a lot of knowledge about the law, and she's very knowledgeable herself about the law. And we have some very good arguments about pro-life and pro-choice. But I look at my 4 children every day, and there's no way that I could do without them. So, from a personal point of view, I'm pro-life, and I will be supporting any pro-life campaign that would go to a referendum. So, I feel that politicians have not got the right to repeal the 8th Amendment unless it goes to a full referendum and for the people to decide by majority vote on that decision.
Thanks, Frank. Charlie?
Yeah, I think as previous speakers have said, it's an exceptionally difficult and sensitive issue to debate in public, and it's one that certainly I'm no expert on. But listen, my disposition in life is to allow people as much personal freedom as they can, but when it comes to, and I would have campaigned very actively, for example, in relation to the gay marriage referendum in favour of it, but my approach in relation to life issues is that in relation to pregnancy, that there are 2 lives involved, and I do think the 8th Amendment in the Constitution certainly has given equal protection to both of those, and that would be my position in relation to it. I think there's issues there which certainly can be dealt, but my position is that I think there is a place for the 8th Amendment, and for it being in the Constitution, I would be supporting that.
Thank you, Charlie.
It is a very, very difficult issue, and you know, it's one of those issues where you have people who might agree on a whole range of issues that disagree on this subject. The perspective of my own party, and it's my own perspective, is that we had women in terms of fetal abnormalities who had the horrendous news that their baby wasn't going to make it, and they were forced to travel across to England and to go through all of that trauma. Bad enough to go through it, but to go through it removed from your families is incredibly painful. And then the issue of rape or incest. You know, as a man, I'm extremely difficult judging on an issue where it's predominantly a woman and her life and her body that we're talking about. But where rape or incest is taking place, I can't find it within myself to deny a woman who's been raped or a victim of incest that's choice. So based on those 2 issues particularly right now, our Constitution, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, does not reflect the will of our people. So on that basis, myself personally and our party support the repeal. That would be legislating for a vote to be put to the people to repeal the 8th Amendment and to allow then for it to be legislated for on a case-by-case basis. But right now the Constitution bars us from allowing women that choice in those cases, and I don't think that's right. So that's why I support the repeal of the 8th Amendment.
Thank you, Paula.
In the period of this Dáil, we introduced the Protection of Life legislation, and it was a very, very difficult, sensitive conversation, and certainly as the legislators beside me, Thomas and Charlie and Pádraig, were part of that debate. And I remember the night before voting on that legislation, I called the Attorney General. I still had reservations, and I asked the question in terms of priority, the unborn and the mother. And I used the example of a woman in a car crash, a pregnant woman in a car crash. If she's in that car crash and she's a pregnant woman and there is the unborn at stake as well, and she's brought to Letterkenny General Hospital, where does the priority lie on the legislation I'm voting for? And the legislation that we voted for and enshrined in that legislation that there's equal protection for both the mother and the child and the unborn. So that equal protection was prominent in that legislation. But throughout that debate, the debate was polarised. You're either pro-life or pro-choice. It's far too complex an issue. It's a personal issue, it's a very sensitive issue, and I agree with the Taoiseach's stance on this, is to set up a citizens' assembly to discuss this issue, and then to set up an all-party Oireachtas committee to continue to discuss this issue. And if you're looking to repeal any part of the Constitution, it will have to go to a referendum ultimately. During the previous Protection of Life legislation in the last 4 years, the importance of dialogue, chaired by Jerry Buttimer, TD from Cork, it was important, but it's going to still be a very polarised argument. Life's not simple. This issue isn't simple either, and I'll be back in my party's stance on that.
Thank you.
The answer to the question is yes. I believe we should repeal the 8th Amendment. I believe that we already have abortion in Ireland, and it takes place in England. 5,000 women a year leave here to go to England to have abortions. I believe that if a woman makes such a difficult choice, she should be able to do it in the surroundings of her family and have that comfort, and that might help some of the difficulty in the decisions that she feels she has to make. I believe that we should start trusting women. We should allow women the decision and the control on their own bodies to make that decision themselves. I don't think anybody makes a decision lightly. I think we should work to have a society where people don't have crisis pregnancies. So if somebody falls pregnant, they feel they can go ahead and have that pregnancy and be supported by our society in bringing up that child. But if they make the decision that they can't go through with it, I think we as a society have to give them every support and comfort that